Good evening and welcome. My name is Jerry McDermott. I'm the Media and Communications Manager here at Fingal County Council and the organiser of this local government education and mentoring programme. The purpose of this programme is to provide knowledge, guidance and support for anyone interested in becoming involved in local politics, either as a candidate or as a member of a political grouping. This is part of an effort by the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage to improve the number of women and people from diverse backgrounds on each of the 31 councils around the country. Each council was asked to come up with a project, and this is Fingal County Council's response: Local Government Education and Mentoring Programme. This is the second of our 4 modules. We kicked off last week with an introduction to politics in Ireland from Professor Gary Murphy of Dublin City University, which I hope you found useful. Tonight's module is looking at the importance of inclusion in local government, and we have 2 excellent speakers in Mairead and Valerie McAllorum Byrne. If you have any questions for either speaker, please type them into the Q&A section, which you'll find at the top of your screen, and we'll endeavour to get through as many of them as we can between now and 8 o'clock. Our first presentation this evening will be from Mairead O'Shea, who is the Communications Manager for See Her Elected. Mairead is a former media and public relations consultant and also a journalist with over 20 years experience in media. Mairead has an honours degree in English, Media and Communications from UL in Limerick and a Post Grad Degree in Applied Communications from NUI in Galway. She also has vast experience in the political arena, including election campaigns, and also worked as a parliamentary assistant to a TD. Mairead has also held a volunteer role as director of the Roscommon Women's Network. She joined See Her Elected in January 2022, so happy first anniversary to you, Mairead, and I'll leave it to you to explain to our viewers what See Her Elected does. So, Mairead, over to you.
Great. Thanks very much, Jerry, and good evening, everybody. And as Jerry said, it's a fantastic programme, the Local Government Education Programme, helping to support more people to become elected members of County Council. So I'm here tonight to tell you all about the work of See Her Elected. Just bear with me now. I'm going to start the slides here from the beginning. Perfect. So basically what I'm going to touch on this evening is we're going to look at why gender and diversity is needed, why it matters, the gender breakdown of councils, and what the state of play looks like nationally in Fingal, and beyond Fingal. And I'll tell you some more about See Her Elected and our work in helping to promote and support women into politics, and how the See Her Elected model has developed. So I suppose I'm going to hit you with one of the big main concepts when we talk about politics, democracy. And I suppose we might struggle to come up with an accurate definition if we were put on the spot. But I think we could all, agree that we understand it to be something positive and something worth fighting for, something worth protecting. And the whole idea, I suppose, underpinning representative democracy is, we have fair and free, frequent elections with universal voting rights that produces a political body that looks like us. And I suppose that, there is the official definition of what representative democracy would mean: a microcosm of the larger society, groups drawn, people drawn from all groups and sections in society, numbers that are proportional to the size of the groups in society. Now, that's all a bit of a mouthful and a bit of an official definition of it. But what does that mean, at its essence, or at its most simple form? It means basically that our county council chambers should look like the society it represents, that it should be a microcosm of the society it represents. So if we're taking Fingal County Council, in that terms, at its most basic of democratic principles, what do we find? Well, the 2016 census tells us that the population is about 49% male, 51% female. So that would support a 50-50 split in the chamber if in an ideal world. But in reality, I suppose things are very different. Now, Fingal actually is bucking the trend nationally. It's actually good compared to a lot of other county councils. There's 38%, 15 women in Fingal County Council, which, as I go through the rest of the slides, you'll see the state of play in other counties around Ireland, and it's not like that at all. So I suppose when we talk about, why it matters that we have that type of balanced decision making. Well, if we think about the type of work and decisions that our county council is responsible for, the council makes decisions on where we live, work, play, relax, everyday decisions. Things that affect all of us and our day-to-day lives. So, we need to, I suppose, if we're having a council that is all, for want of a better, that old adage, male, pale and stale, then it's only representing a particular viewpoint within the society it represents. And we're missing a vast chunk and expertise and knowledge of, say, women, for example, migrant people, people from different ethnic backgrounds, people from a traveller background. So you're not having that balanced decision making. And I suppose, these decisions, they make decisions, but it feeds into policy and decision making. So if you haven't that balance in your decision making, then it's not going to be representative. And I always use the analogy, I suppose, of the two rooms. In room A, if you had 18 men and 1 woman, and in room B you had 19 women and 1 man. The two rooms, if you gave both of those rooms a problem to solve, the solutions that would come out of room A and room B would be very different, because we all, our mindsets, I suppose, are shaped by our lives and how we process and our own perspective, and how that all comes to bear on our solutions and how we can offer different solutions. And I suppose if you're talking about go back to stats and figures, if you look at the breakdown too of, I suppose, different ethnic backgrounds, there's over a significant percentage of Polish people, Asian, Black people, different ethnic backgrounds. There's 13.5% of people living with a disability, for example, or somewhere between 3 and 8% is estimated might identify as LGBT plus. So if that was to be representative, say, for example, in Fingal, then we should see 5 people, for example, living with a disability, 5 councillors, 2 would identify as LGBT plus, a number would be from Polish background, traveller background, the different ethnic minorities. That would be in an ideal scenario, but obviously that isn't the case. And I'm labouring the point here, but what I'm trying to do is, I suppose, to set out to explain that that's in an ideal world how the council chamber should be reflective then of the society that it's representing. And to bring that expertise and lived experience into the decisions that are made at council level, and that can only strengthen the legitimacy and strengthen democracy. So it's vital that we have that the background. Sorry, I'm just going to go on to my next slide. So yeah, so we're looking at, I suppose, the breakdown there. That just shows you the picture there nationally. And as I said, Fingal is pretty good compared to other parts of Ireland at 38%, with 15 women, compared to, say, for example, I'm living in Roscommon. We've only 4 women out of 18. Westmeath only 4 as well. Donegal, it's a massive county, 37 councillors, there's only 4 women there. Likewise, Sligo was only 3 women, Monaghan 3. There's actually 2 now, because one that figure has changed. Mayo, a massive county, 30 councillors, and only 2 are women. So you can see the stats speak for themselves in Dublin and surrounding areas. Surrounding urban areas, the figures are, a little bit better. But as I say, when you get into your car and drive down the M50 into the rest of Ireland, rural Ireland in particular, the figures are pretty stark, and there is a serious lack of representation of women at county council level. And I suppose the other point, to make as well, it's not about women being better than men. It's about having the balance and having that shared and lived experience that is brought to bear on the policy and decision making. That's what we're talking about. Leitrim, for example, Now, this figure actually is actually startling, because when I'm showing you that previous graph and you can see the figures around Ireland, you might say, oh, that's just from the last election, or it's, that way in the last few years. Unfortunately, it's not. Since 1925, since the foundation of the state, there have only ever been 6 women in total elected to Leitrim County Council. That's in almost 100 years. Like, imagine. In Roscommon, there have only ever been 11 women elected to Roscommon County Council since 1925. So that's how stark the figures and the reality is on the ground. Offaly County Council, there's 19 councillors. There's only 1 woman in that chamber, Councillor Claire Claffey, Social Democrat councillor. So you can see the problem. As I said, Fingal compares very good compared to other parts of Ireland. The breakdown there by Biggin, there's 3 female councillors, Blettertown 103, Castleknock 3, Howth Malahide has 2 female councillors, Ongar 2. There's no female representative in Rush or the Lusk area, and 2 in Swords. And I suppose we should give a special shout out to Castleknock in particular, which has bucked the trend, I suppose, within Fingal. Going back to 1999, it has been pretty good split. Obviously, it has been a 50-50 split, 2 women, 2 men. You can 2004, 09, up to 2014, and in 2019. There was 2 women elected, 4 men, but that's since up to 4 and 4. We have a 50-50 split now with co-options. So, that could be an interesting discussion point for yourselves, or something to think about, that why is it that Castleknock in particular is able to return a nearly 50-50 split compared to maybe Rush or Lusk area that has no women. So that's something to have a think about. And I suppose to tell you a little bit more about See Her Elected and what we do. We are a collaboration. It's a feminist community-led rural initiative to support women to become county councillors. And we're a collaboration between Longford Women's Link and 50-50 Northwest. And it's all about grassroots and listening to the needs and wants of the women at a local level. And we were initially founded back in 2019, so we're relatively new on the ground, and our starting point was basically research in the Midlands and Northwest showed that there was a really stark underrepresentation of women. So there was funding, a once-off piece of funding provided to do some research and training in that area, and we gradually built, and we basically developed then in 2020. And the last few years. So we've gone from strength to strength. And I suppose part of the problem when we looked at it initially back in 2019, there was this self-perceived, lack of knowledge, or self-perceived lack of political knowledge. Women would say, oh, sure, I don't know anything about politics. I wouldn't know anything about that. And a lot of women were waiting to be asked, to run for a party or to consider being an independent or whatever the case. They were waiting to be asked, and that ask comes too late in the day if it's from a party or whatever. And women don't feel prepared or have enough preparation time, so they're not at the races then when it comes to selection convention and getting prepared. The political parties asking too late. And it's very often as well, women underestimating their own abilities, and not recognising that a lot of the work that women do in communities, we know ourselves from being involved in communities, women are often the backbone of communities that could be on GA boards, tidy town committees, school boards, whatever the case may be, climate action groups, so they're actually doing that work on the ground, and that's politics with a small p. But it's being able to own that and see it as valuable and worthy work, and making that jump from that grassroots community work onto the ballot paper. So these are some of the points, and I suppose as well, women maybe some of the barriers women may be doing, the lion's share of the caring responsibilities. Or as I said, they may underestimate their own abilities and waiting to be asked too late, and then being asked too late in the day by political parties. And sometimes, being added on as a token female candidate at the last minute. And that's not going to help anyone, because it's, nobody wants to be the token female on the ticket at the last minute, or to be a sweeper, to bring in number twos or whatever for the other preferred male candidate. So these are all the issues that are a part of what we're trying to address through our work in See Her Elected. And as I said, we moved January 2020, then we were building on that, everything was going great, and then obviously the whole world was hit with the dreaded COVID pandemic. So we moved everything online then. So all our workshops were provided online free of charge. But in a way, I suppose it every cloud, they say, has the silver lining, but I suppose we were able to reach more women than we ever would have been if it wasn't through, the online world. And what we do, we provide free online workshops, resources and tools to help equip women with the skills, confidence and knowledge to go forward for election. And we do that through what we call our She School. And we basically have a different range of workshops. We are currently running an Introduction to Politics workshop, and that's our entry-level course where we talk about, demystifying politics and explaining what it's all about, what the role of a councillor is, and how you can, what does active citizenship mean? And then we have election workshops, which are running at the moment too. They're starting, actually, the next round is starting in January the 23rd. You can pick the day and the time that suits you. We run the workshops at 4 different times of the day: early morning, mid-morning, lunch and evening. So it fits into the life and reality of women. And the things that we look at in those workshops, we look at campaign, canvassing strategy, communication strategy, how to create the perfect pitch, writing a press release, tips for radio interviews, social media strategy, the nuts and bolts of campaign and canvassing strategy, all that type of practical, information that you need. And we also have a workshop coming up in March the 7th. It's the Digital Self-Defence Workshop, which we're doing in conjunction with Glitch, the award-winning UK charity, to help promote and keep yourself safe online. And we have a selection convention boot camp, we're calling it, on the 27th of March. And that's to get you prepared and get you ready for the selection conventions, which are happening now. We also then do I suppose, different topics of interest: pension policy, housing, juggling council work and caring, for example, family life, different examples of webinars and events we've held over the last year. We also have a series of videos on our website from all the main political parties and independent, to talk about, the pros and cons of running, or what are the benefits, helping you to decide which party or whether to run independent if you are deciding to go in the local election. And to tie all of that together with all of our workshops, we also produced last year Ireland's first ever guide, the See Her Elected guide to running in the 2024 local elections. And that's a really practical, can-do, kind of nuts and bolts of what you need. Everything from, how to get your team organised, how to canvass properly, the register of electors, am I eligible to run, looking at, is there a vacancy in my area, things like, getting on the register of elector, and obviously reminding people that you don't need to be an Irish citizen to vote in a local election. We look at, as I said, social media, radio, canvassing, campaigning, posters, billboard, campaign photography, everything and anything. The book is also available in Polish. The book is available to download free of charge from our website, seeherelected.ie, but anyone who gets in touch with us or who takes part in the workshops gets a copy free of charge. We were also lucky to be to win the Innovation in Politics Award in 2021 in the democracy category. And we were up against projects from all across Europe. And it was the first time that Ireland won this award. So it was a major achievement for us in See Her Elected. That's Michelle Maher, my colleague there, with Mr. Peter Burke in Brussels, to pick up the award. And that was fantastic, because they were so impressed with the She School model and how we delivered the modules, and how it was a grassroots led approach. So that's all about our work and what we do. You can find out more about us online, seeherelected.ie. We're on all the platforms, the usual, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or drop us an email, info@seeherelected.ie. We're there to help. All our resources are free and online, and myself and Michelle are very accessible and very friendly. So, pick up the phone, give us a ring or drop us an email, and we're there to help, as I said. So that is all from me.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Mairead. And if anybody's got any questions on what you've just heard, please use the Q&A facility on the screen, and we'll do our best to get through as many questions as we can before 8 o'clock. And don't forget that tonight's module is being recorded, and we're going to send out a link to the recording to tomorrow. So there was a lot of information there from Mairead. So if you haven't quite got it down or captured it in that, you will have the link tomorrow, and you can then get down all the details. But I think, as Mairead said, the website www.seeherelected.ie is where you get all the information to that. Our second presentation this evening is from Valerie McAllorum Byrne, who is Fingal County Council's Integration Officer. She was appointed in May 2021, and her appointment highlighted the Council's commitment to inclusivity and progress throughout Fingal's communities. Valerie has worked in community development for more than 26 years, and for the past 19 of those, she's worked with the Fingal Community Development Office in the areas of social inclusion, community development, capital and strategic projects. She has coordinated projects such as the Volunteer Centre Fingal, Corlin and Oak, and the development of Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission funded training on intercultural diversity and public sector duty. So while Mairead focused on the importance of having women involved in local government, Valerie is going to talk to you about the importance of also having people from diverse backgrounds involved as well. So over to you, Valerie.
Good evening. How are you? And thank you very much for asking me here this evening. Yeah, I am going to talk about the importance of inclusion in local government from a diversity perspective. As Jerry said, I am the integration officer, and a large part of my role is the delivery of the Fingal migrant integration and social cohesion strategy. And what I'd like to talk to you this evening is I suppose to run through, the importance of the diversity piece is to look at the stats for Fingal. I know Mairead went through some stats on a national basis, but ours in Fingal, what does that mean for us in Fingal County Council? And what did we hear in terms of the strategy? What did we do with that? And why is diversity in public representation so important? So, just in terms of the stats for Fingal, the census 2022, so there's only very preliminary results for now, but looking what there is there, we have the highest growth in population recorded, 5,123,536, and Fingal is among those with the highest growth. So the largest inward migration of over 46,559,000. Some of which could be attributed to the Ukraine crisis, but as we know ourselves on the ground that there is a huge diversity already here in Fingal, and that is growing, and the stats are showing that. It'll be very interesting to see actually what does come out of, that it's preliminary results now, but when the full results are out, it'll be very interesting to see how much growth there has been. In 2016, which is where we have the stats for, we had 535,475 non-Irish nationals living in Ireland, with a decrease of 1.6% on 2011. But the national average is 11.6%, but in Fingal it was 16%. So as you can see, we have that higher percentage. So I thought it might be useful if we look at, given that we're looking at diversity, I think it would be good to look at the breakdown of the ethnicities. I think Mairead did hark there to talk about a little bit about, what the breakdown should be if we had X amount of number. So I suppose to look at it on the Fingal perspective, looking at the total population, say, of Tyrrellstown is 3,242, and out of that 43.1% or 1,398 are white Irish. The remaining population is made up of 43 traveller, 509 other white background, i.e. Polish, Lithuanian, etc. are Black or Black Irish, with 84 being Asian or Asian Irish. In Swords Village, so I suppose Swords would be seen as another sort of urban space in Fingal, because we are so diverse in Fingal, and we have a lot of rural areas as well, particularly at the north, up North County. But for Swords Village, the total population there was 2,612. Now that's a village, not the wider Swords area. So 64.2%, or 1,679, are white Irish. Remaining population is made up of one traveller, 563 other white background, Polish and Lithuanian, etc. Because it's not just Polish, Lithuanian, it's Romanian and other ethnicities there as well. 52 are Black Irish, 78 Asian Irish. And then we move up, I suppose, the county again to the tip, to the Balbriggan. A total population of 16,430, 60.9%, or 10,011 are white Irish. So you can see that's the majority of the population. 151 are traveller, 2,699 other white background, and then 2,125 Black or Black Irish, 468 Asian or Asian Irish. So what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of the diversity of Fingal? Now, I haven't obviously captured every area, because obviously I don't want to, I think we'd all asleep if I was to talk about all the statistics in all the different areas of Fingal, because Fingal is a hugely diverse county. But I suppose, what does it mean to have that diversity? So as well as making the population more diverse, and I think Mairead also spoke about that, and the knowledge and in diversity, and that feeding into policy and having the balance is so important. I think is so true, because, with that diversity, we see that on the ground. Immigrants vary in terms of the profile, the socioeconomic background, religious beliefs, customs, proficiency in English, in the English language. But having that diversity is really important then, in the voice that is heard. And I think that's where, I suppose, it is so important to have that representation and have the balance in that representation as well. The impact of the increase of people from migrant backgrounds has brought many benefits, including new business ideas, the cultural richness, and new language skills. While diversity presents opportunities, it can also present challenges, and it's important that ourselves as Fingal County Council continue to welcome and respond appropriately to those who set Fingal. And I suppose it is where we live. Fingal is a place where we understand, I suppose, that people are working here, living here, and as I say, play. So for our other activities outside of our work, school, and our life balance, that we get them. We try as much as we can to listen and hear, so that we can respond appropriately. It's equally important that Fingal County Council adapts to the increasingly diverse nature of our society. So what did we do? So how do we go about doing that? To listen to a voice, and to look at how we might roll that out on the ground. So Fingal County Council decided that, I suppose, to listen and hear the voice of migrants, and so we worked collaboratively with a number of agencies to develop the Fingal Migrant Integration and Social Cohesion Strategy. And I said at the beginning that this is a large part of my work. So, okay, so you have a strategy, that's great. We can all just pat each other on the shoulders there, or on the back. But, it has to be a work document. It can't be something that's left on a shelf and it's just going to gather dust. That's not what we're about. So every year we develop an action plan. So we have pillars internally working across the whole organisation, and then as I said, we have the annual action plan, so that our actions are rolled out, they're laid out very clearly, and that we can track our progress. So we heard that we do need to include migrants in many ways, such as language services and representation. So and I suppose representation is probably, well, it is one of the main reasons we're here this evening, but you know, it's also a provision in services for ourselves, and to be important that people understand as well that we're representative as much as possible in terms of language provision. We heard and we set aside across 5 main pillars within Fingal to deliver on these. Okay, so we have a public sector pillar, an enterprise, communications, integration, and housing pillar or pillars, and they come from those various departments there. You can see corporate, economic, communications, community and housing. Now, we did a mid-year review last year, and we also have included other departments such as economic, because their brief also includes actions within that, the migrant strategy, even though they're not named in this particular one. So we're very mindful of constantly looking at it and ensuring that, you know, it is up to date. I just want to give you a couple of samples of the actions that are in there. So we have action 2.4, which is around staff training, and that's about providing training to staff to help them understand cultural differences. It's really important that our staff in Fingal understand cultural differences, and by the provision of training and that we have developed, and I was very involved with that, using the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission funding. So that is a compulsory piece of training that is delivered, but we will also this year, to build upon that, run a cultural awareness workshop across the county, but also staff will be included in that, and that'll be on the 14th of March. So we have an action 3.3 in terms of information, ensuring that our website is user friendly, and that we have tools there, the Recite tool, which can actually change the languages of the information that is provided on the Fingal County Council website. Provision of events and consultation reminders that are there. So again, that, you know, there is a wide audience being aware of what is coming up and what is being asked for comment on. I think that's really important, to the provision of clear information on our housing processes. That needs to, you know, that did need to be up on the website, and that now is in place. Action 8.6, which is around leadership, integration approach to business supports and ethnic entrepreneurs. So we have the LEO, which is under the enterprise pillar, and they look to deliver to their business clinics those business supports to ethnic entrepreneurs. But we also look to have events which include ethnic entrepreneurs, and last year there was, and we will have it again this year, a Pacific Day for ethnic entrepreneurs. Sorry. So action 4.3 around promotion of interaction, established a migrant forum. And that really was to bring the voice of the migrant across the county, and that I do some work with that forum. We also fund them under a service level agreement, so that supports them to deliver some of the actions within the strategy across the county. The action 6.3, which is around tenant support. So it's around having continued tenant induction, and consider adding in the modules around antisocial behaviour and anti-racism, which we did do, and that's in process now as we speak. So what did we do? So that brings us to today and why we're here. I suppose this programme is in action, and under 8.3, the representation, this particular programme, the local government programme in education, is actually one of the actions within the migrant strategy, and it was around developing a model for mentoring and information sessions with current and past councillors for potential candidates in local elections, and it's a really informative piece, and I'm delighted to say that communications have developed that, and we ran the pilot last year in Fingal, and we're rolling it out now. So why is diversity of public representation so important to our county? Our demographic demographics tell us that we are a diverse county. Of course it does. I mean, you can see it there, it's in black and white. And so going back again to what Mairead was saying earlier, you know, it's the importance of hearing the voice of the people it represents, you know, and I suppose not only nationally, but in Fingal, given we have an increased number of, you know, ethnic minorities in our county, but then it just, for me, it if we aren't listening, sorry, if we don't listen, well, then we don't have that representation. If we listen, we do. And that's one of the reasons why we're here this evening, is to try and get that message out there. It's so important, you know, to have that representation. Our work on the ground also tells us that we need to hear the voices of our communities. We have geo teams across the county from our community development office, and you know, that does tell us, you know, there is diversity there, and there's a diverse voice that needs to be heard. Our services are used by a wide range of people with diverse ethnic backgrounds. Our work in rolling out our strategy tells us that we are learning, but you know, that we need to continue. You know, so again, you know, I do a document every year. We have an oversight group called the Expert Advisory Group, and it's from a range of organisations across and services across the county. And we look to, you know, to I suppose to put in that report all the actions that we have achieved. But you know, there are so many more. And so we're very mindful of that. Our public sector duty and obligation as a local authority also tells us that's what we need to do. It's the way forward to get input into our services from all the voices in our county. And I think that is, you know, that is a really important piece. And again, questions, if there's anything up there in the Q&A, I'll endeavour to answer them for you. And I just want to say thank you very much.
Okay, and thank you, Valerie. And as Valerie said, if you have any questions from what you just heard, just please use the Q&A facility on the screen. And we're going to now do our best to get through as many questions as we can between now and 8 o'clock. And as I said before, don't forget that the module is being recorded, and we'll send out the link to the recording tomorrow. So let's take a look at some of the questions that have been coming in. And I'm going to start with you, Mairead. There's one here, and I'll just read it out. It is, do you think that there are less women, especially in bigger counties, due to our history with males being in our government, etc., for so long, or is there any other reason for a lesser amount of women involved in politics?
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, so the history of males being in the government for so long, it's an interesting point, and it does impact on the numbers. I mean, incumbents, people that men that have been holding on to council seats forever, and they're nearly welded to them at this stage. So it's trying to get them, the difficulty of getting incumbents out of seats is a major issue for women, and one of the barriers. And I talked about some of those barriers there. You know, when we, you know, talk about male, pale and stale, a lot of the council chambers are made up of predominantly white, middle-aged men. And while we need to see that representative part of our society, of course we do, but we equally, it can't be all of that picture. And that is one of the barriers, yes, certainly incumbents. And as I said, women underestimating themselves, maybe waiting to be asked to run, and being asked by political parties too late in the day. So that's why in See Her Elected we would say, well, why not you? And any woman that's listening to this tonight, why not you? Why couldn't you run in 2024? You know, and you don't need a degree in politics or sociology to be a county councillor. All you need to do is care about your community and care about where you live, and know the issues and the reality of life facing people on the ground. That's their only requirements, and to have passion and energy and want to make change, you know. So why not you? And look at the vacancy in your area. Is there an incumbent perhaps going to retire or step down? Is there, you know, is there somebody, maybe, is there something else happening locally on the ground? So see where the vacancy is, see where you can get your votes. Like obviously if there's a party are running two candidates in one area, there may not run a third, it just wouldn't be the votes. So you have to be strategic, like whether you're in a party or you might decide to run as an independent, but look at the ground, see where you can actually feasibly get votes. And I suppose the other point to make, you know, a lot of women come to us and they may not be from a political background, and people would have always traditionally thought, oh, you know, that you have to have a political pedigree or from a background or your family were steeped in politics. But that's changing, and is changing all the time. And you know, many women would say, well, I'm not from a political background, but where do I start? So that's where we come in with that you know, information of, you know, how to go about what's involved, you know, how much power do local authorities have, what's the reserve and executive function, looking at budgets, county development plans. We take them through, you know, the whole step by step of raising their profile, looking for the vacancy, looking at the register of electors. As I said, our guidebook then works hand in hand with the workshops, but I can talk at length anyway. I hope that answers that.
No, I think that is, and it just that thing you mentioned, I think, in your course of your presentation about tokenism and that just prompts the question, you know, in terms of these gender quotas and that, is there a danger that the sort of the purpose of having gender quotas could get sort of I suppose stymied by tokenism?
Well, you see, that's one of the arguments that people would make if they're, you know, not in favour of gender quotas. But in say elected, we would be in favour of gender quotas. And I suppose your point on, you know, is there a danger of that tokenism? But you see, if we waited for things to happen organically, we'd be here till another 50 years, you know what I mean, before we'd see any change. It's just happening too slow to allow it to happen organically. So gender quotas will give it that sharp injection that we need. And gender quotas work. I mean, we saw in the 2016 general election with the introduction of quotas for gender quotas, there was a 90% increase in the number of female candidates, and there was a 1/3 of an increase in the number of female TDs. So gender quotas do work. We'd love to see them coming in at local election level. I don't think that's the reality by 2024. The Citizens' Assembly did recommend that gender quotas be introduced in the next locals, but you know, I don't know is the political will there to see that happen. And that's something as well. We need the parties and the political parties to take some responsibility here and to put that clout and that political will behind doing it. Because if we wait, as I said, for parity to happen organically, we'll be here forever.
Yeah, thank you. Valerie, I'll just come into you there. There's question in here from Shannon, and she basically says, from my own experience, I do feel that there is very much a lack of understanding of people's backgrounds, ethics, religions, etc. And that's causing problems for people of a diverse background in terms of racism. And she wants to know, would or could this be causing less people from a diverse background not wanting or not feeling safe enough to join political parties or run for election to council?
I suppose that's a tough one, you know, it is. But what I'd say to you is that through the different forums, I think, you know, I suppose to me, I mean, integration, right, is the hat that I wear, right? But I always say to people, you can't make people integrate. How you get people to integrate is to introduce different forms where people can come together, and it's through understanding. That's when, you know, I suppose people feel safe about saying, you know, if they are, you know, I suppose maybe a little bit nervous about saying what religion or whatever otherwise they are, or creates an understanding. So you have the Fingal integration forum, you have the Fingal ethnic network, you have the public participation network, where in my experience in Fingal, you have a lot of people from diverse backgrounds coming together. So it's, again, as Mairead said, sometimes it's not, it's, you know, if you're, I suppose, very organically, it probably would take years, but because we have these forums, it does speed up the understanding a little bit quicker, if you like, because, you know, I suppose they're tied into the strategy as well, and so actions out of that they'll be delivering on the ground. So it's about promoting understanding. Okay, so I can give you an example of a couple of things across the county that we do that. Groups are invited from those forums to participate in Flavours of Fingal. So they have a stand and they can, you know, people come and they have a chat. And I think spaces like that, part of Inclusion Week, we had 144 events there during that week in November, and, you know, a lot of them were diverse events. People just came along then to sit and listen, and to I suppose to experience what's happening, you know, in those communities. Do you know what I mean? And they're invited in. So it's like a showcase. It's a really lovely opportunity to promote understanding and inclusion. And then you have the likes of Africa Day and India Day, where again, you know, those forums, and they're not just African people, it's people from across Fingal that participate in those networks, and they are actually involved in the development of those events. So that creates an understanding. So it's through that, I think that's how we will all move forward in a diverse community.
And I suppose it's by getting involved in those sort of committees and that, both for people from diverse backgrounds and also females, that you build your confidence up and you build your network up and you build, you know, you sort of, it's step by step, like rather than maybe jumping straight in and going for election, you build up your confidence and you build up your network and you build up your understanding of what's involved.
Yeah, and it's true that you know, I suppose the experiencing each other's cultures and like that, the representation, because representation is also in our strategy, and the groups like Fingal Ethnic Network, the Integration Forum, the PPN, they must be part of those processes, you know, to encourage people to go forward. And it's, as you very rightly say there, Jerry, this is where people then, you know, they're connecting with other local councils or councillors on these linkage groups, and, you know, social inclusion groups, and the housing, and they then, you know, you're talking to councillors at a very one-to-one level, and then you're learning. And often what happens then is, if you're interested in going forward for public representation, then you will actually, you know, make a link with that person, and often they will be mentored then. So that's sort of what in my experience, the way it kind of follows.
Okay, thanks, Valerie. Mairead, one in here from Alex, and he wants to know, you've talked about how, you know, you went through Ireland and that sort of thing, but Alex wants to know, how does Ireland compare to other European countries with female representation on local councils? Would you know that?
I don't have the figure off the top of my head in terms of local councils, but I know national parliaments, we rank very poorly, actually. We're currently in 101st position when it comes to female representation at national politics level. Countries like Finland and Sweden, Sweden I think is up in 47%, nearly at 50-50. They would be a lot higher up in the tables. And just to go back to the point about incumbents as well, you're looking at rankings or percentages. I think it was Sweden, I'm just trying to recall this, but I think it was Sweden that when they had their in some areas at the local elections, they basically started from scratch. There wasn't, the way their system was set up, they hadn't a local government as we would know it. So they basically had their first ever local election at a local level, and 60% of the women, or 60% of the people elected were women, because they were starting at an equal starting point. They're starting from scratch, so the incumbents weren't there to hold on to the seats, so we could see the difference that made. But yeah, nationally we're 101st globally, which is very poor.
You're obviously preparing people for the 2024 local elections and this particular question is, does courses such as this and the likes of what you do help more women to make a start within the sort of government, council, politics?
Well, absolutely. You know, that's the whole point, raising debt, if you want, you know, that the reason that we're there. So yeah, I mean, the what you call it, the proof will be in the pudding now in 2024. It'd be interesting to look at the stats, and hopefully we'll be on Claire Byrne or Pat Kenny talking about the she effect across Ireland, where we've seen you know, an increase in the number of female councillors elected. I would hope now it might take another cycle. It could be the next election after that before we see any real and consistent improvements. But you know, we had a very poor starting point to begin with, particularly in rural Ireland. So we want to see the women that are there hold on and retain the seats, and we want to see more women elected. So yeah, we would be confident that the work we're doing, I mean, we've had over 800 women in the last few years through our workshops, our resources, through our public events, public speaking. This, which is fantastic numbers. Now, when you boil it down, how many will go for election, how many will, that'll be the key thing to see how many will actually run. But I'd say, to be from the most recent workshops in the last year, I'd say we'd have a good 80 there that will run in their areas. So it's slow, but as I said, it might take another cycle to see the real impact, but we'll be hopeful that our work will have some real impact.
And I suppose too, what has happened on the East Coast is it probably gives you a lot of hope as well, in that certainly from your table it was Dublin City County, Dublin City Council, Dunleary, Rathdown, South Dublin, Fingal, Kildare, Wicklow, Louth, as well as Cork County Council were the main ones in terms of the number of females on the council. So it can be done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can see the places around Dublin and the urban, the higher urban concentrations. It is almost at 50-50. So it is possible. It's, it can be done. It's just the figures are a lot worse, as I said. That's why CR-Elect was established in the Midlands and Northwest initially, because it was, as I said, some of the figures there, you saw a county as big as Donegal with only 4 women out of 37, Mayo only 2 out of 30, 1 woman out of 19 in Offaly. So, it's not representative of the society and the community the council represents. So, this, as I said before, there's a myriad of different reasons why that's the case, and the barriers, we've spoken about them, but that's what we're about, is offering that real practical solution-based help and resources to help women to put themselves forward. And a lot of some of the points that come up with us in the workshops as well is this whole notion of what we call the fear, that there's a real block when it comes, as I said, women are doing this work in the communities, they're doing this really valuable work, they're well capable, but yet when it comes to it, there's a block or a fear. So we've tried to build that into our workshops with resilience and leadership training, and to break down some of those barriers, and I always kind of use the example of a job description. If a woman and a man were applying for a job and there was a 10 things listed in the bullet point for the criteria you needed, like a man might, now I know I'm generalizing here, but like if a man was reading that job spec, and it'd be very different to the way a woman might read it. So she mightn't apply for the job unless, she might say, oh, I can only do 8 out of those 10 things. I won't bother applying for that now. I don't tick every box there. Whereas the man might look at the same job spec and go, gosh, I can do 3 out of those 10 things. I'm a mighty altogether. Sure, I have this in the bag, So we underestimate ourselves as well. Yeah. And that's part of the problem,
Yeah, and I think people sell them, even men and as well as women, sell themselves short at times and don't realize how much ability they actually have. And that, Valerie, just coming back to you, there's one in here from Sharon who says, and I quote, "I see language as a barrier. English language classes are absent in my part of Fingal. Some changes happened as a result of the Ukrainian war, which is welcome. Public transport does not match the places where classes are on. My friends who are from Africa feel that they are lucky they had English from coming from former colonies, but many older people from Eastern European countries are struggling for many years with their English proficiency." And she just wants to know, is there any plans to address this? And I suppose it does touch on one thing, that if people are going into sort of local politics and that sort of thing, language can be a barrier.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We have a number of initiatives in the Community Development Office to address the English language piece, and they would be a very good programme called Fáilte is Teach. It sounds like it's going to be an Irish class, but actually it's welcome. And normally the way that's set up, it's set up at a grassroots level, so that enables people to come in at all different levels, from basically no English right up to advanced. And the way that it works in a very organic way is that you start, and then by the time there's no time limit on it. You could be there for a year, you could be there for 2 years or 3. It's volunteer led, and often what we have is then when people come up to a certain level themselves, they'll actually start volunteering. And we have them in a lot of the centres across the county, but we also have like that just English language classes. We work with the DDLETB as well, and they would roll out English classes. And Empower too, they also run English language classes. Now they have a Fáilte Stock as well. There's a little bit different to ours in that you do a term in Fáilte Stock, and when you have maybe a very basic level, then you have to move forward to one of the English classes, whether that's Cambridge English or whatever. So there is key places in Fingal. If you look on the Fingal website, you have a look. You didn't define which area that you're actually in. If it's a transport issue, it might be up North County, maybe more rural area. And if that's the case, when you go on to the Fingal website and you go into the community development section, have a look and see who's your community officer for that area. And I would touch base with them, because they certainly would address that as an issue.
Okay, thanks, Valerie.
Can I just say as well, I suppose we're talking about people actually going forward for election, when people maybe are arriving and don't know even how to vote. So to address that, and myself and Jerry actually touched on it earlier on today when we had a meeting, and that was around knowing your vote. So we had a program last year we developed called Your Vote, Your Voice, and through corporate and communications with the Community Development Office and myself, we actually rolled out voter awareness days. So basically showing people, who can vote, and the different forms that are available depending on where you're from, and assisting you to filling them out. So we'll be rolling out 2 of them this year. So keep your eyes out on the Fingal website, have a look, and please come along for anyone who's interested there. And I mean, we can build from there, because if people come out to vote, they see the process, because it's not the same, as we all know, in every country, and there can be a fear in some countries, of that voting process. Ours is very democratic and very representative, but again, in order to increase representation in terms of diversity, I think it's really important that people actually vote in the first place.
Okay,
absolutely.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Valerie. And we're coming up against time, and I'm going to just ask one more question. I'm going to go to you, Mairead, because I think this probably is a good way to end it. And the question basically is, in layman terms, how do I get started to become a member of council, or even better, a voice of reason for people such as travelling women, black women, disabled women, etc.? Where do I go? So I'll leave that to you, Mairead.
Well, you come straight to us in See Her Elected. Log on to www.seeherelected.ie. As I said, give us a ring. Lots of workshops online. We have a new election workshop starting on the 23rd of January. It's at 4 different times of the day to suit women's lives and needs. We have an Intro to Politics course. It's all free and online. All you need is an internet connection and a computer. We have, as I said, the guidebook as well, and that is your how-to step-by-step guide. If you know nothing about politics and you want to get involved, and you want to know how to find out more about being a councillor and what the job involves, the pay, what your actual role is. Sometimes people have a misconception as to what actually councillors do. So it's all in that. So get in touch with us, and we'll put you on the right path and get a workshop to suit you. And we're with you every step of the way. And just to pick up on a point that Valerie made there, I thought was very important. And I found this, meeting with a lot of migrant groups in Longford and other parts of the Midlands. The people didn't realise. Some migrant people didn't realise that they actually could vote in the local elections, that you don't have to be a citizen to vote in the local elections. It's a simple form that you can download or get in your county council, as Valerie said, and that's part of that voter education, and also explaining how the PRSTV voting system in Ireland works. We actually commissioned a video. See Her Elected have a fantastic video that's also online on our website, and it explains how the PRSTV voting system works in Ireland. And it's a lot easier to get elected in a local election than you might actually think, thanks to the way that PRSTV system works. So we've seen people elected on the 9th or 10th count to take the final sixth seat, for example, that happened in Westmeath with Councillor Hazel Smith. So and there was only a handful of votes separating her and the last person. So it is easier than you might imagine, thanks to the way that voting system works. And as I said, that's another video on our website.
Okay, so www.seeherelected.ie is the place to go to. Well, time has caught up on us, so my thanks to Mairead and Valerie for their excellent insights, and I'm sure they've given you plenty to think about. We did get some questions in, and they relate more to what we have next week, because next week's module is the third in our series, and it'll be about the council. And we'll have the Mayor of Fingal, Councillor Howard Mahoney, giving us an insight into the life of a councillor, while the Chief Executive of Fingal County Council, Anne-Marie Farley, will talk about how the council works. So some of the questions we were getting in tonight, and indeed some of the questions we got last week during Module 1, relate to that particular one. And I'm sure you're going to find that particular discussion fascinating. We'll be talking to both the mayor, who will be coming at it from a councillor's point of view, and the chief executive, who will be coming at it from the sort of the executive point of view and explaining how it works. And we can get into questions as to the relationship between the council and the councillors and that. So promises to be a fascinating discussion next week, so don't forget to tune in. And the one thing I would just say to you is, if you're not getting the links for the live version, if you do check your junk email and that sort of thing, just in case it has popped in there. One or two people have had one or two issues in relation to it. Our final module on January the 31st is Finding Your Political Home, and this is where we'll move into the mentoring phase of the programme. We'll be inviting the various political groupings on Fingal County Council to tell you what they're about, what they stand for, and what they're looking for in new members. And what you hear that evening will hopefully help you find your political home if you haven't got one already, and we'll provide contact details for all the political groupings on the council, so you can reach out to the one that you're most interested in. So we're now at the halfway point of our programme with 2 modules done and 2 to go. My thanks to our producer, Mark Broderick, who was looking after things on the other side of the camera. And thanks once again to Mairead O'Shea and Valerie McAllorum Byrne for being our guests this evening. And don't forget that See Her Elected will be commencing the next round of their excellent election workshops on the week of January 23rd to 26th. All you have to do is just pick a day and a time that suits. They also have an Intro into Politics course starting on April the 26th and a digital self-defense workshop on March the 7th. And then they have a selection convention bootcamp on March the 27th. And that is probably a very important one to go into, because that's where all the decisions are made. Isn't that right, Mairead? All the details of those workshops are on the See Her Elected website. And that's, as I said before, www.seeherelected.ie. So that's it from me. We've just ran a little bit over time, but thank you for your attendance this evening, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Good night and stay safe.